And how far do you kind of try to counterbalance that, right? Because sometimes if you're too dramatic on one end, you end up not having the tools you need to play out against the general field, and that can start to hurt you. But
absolutely.
Here we go. HSK's TEJJY kicking off with Swordcraft against DV8's very own. And DV8, how do you have Albert? How are you so lucky? Ugh.
Everybody's got sweet leaders. Okay, I'm not even going to go into it anymore. I do want to take the time to remind you guys, like you see HSK TEJJY up there, if you give us your Skype details at the beginning of the tournament, we will give you 1,000 extra vials if you make top cut, and you get to basically be on stream. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that curve for TEJJY, though. Going for it. Oh, and he's got the round table. Oh, my God. Oh, boy. I like what I'm seeing.
That's right. I like all this. So, like, we know that Roundtable Assembly does different things in this deck. It's not the double Juliet aggro pulls that you're used to. It's like White Paladins, it's Mars. In some cases, you know, it could even be the new Tempest, like Lancer of the Tempest. And you can pull that out to just have more rush followers early in the game. There's a lot of tools that mid-range Swordcraft has access to.
Oh, man, they're just trading cards back and forth here. Evolution turn coming out for DVA, and I think that's going to swing the board around. Oh, man. Okay.
This Hedgehog doing work.
Yeah, going to be able to swing in for 3, and that's kind of the win for TEJJY for both the curve and also kind of playing on the play.
That's right. So let's talk about mid-range Swordcraft versus mid-range Swordcraft. How do you know who's winning in this matchup, right? The biggest thing that you have to take into consideration is that Swordcraft doesn't really play a lot of spells.
Yeah.
So how do you quantify how well they're doing? How big their board is. Essentially, whoever controls the board is winning the game in the Swordcraft mirror.
Yeah. And the evolution turns for that reason are very important. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Let's suit up the board.
Yeah, talk about big boards here.
Yeah. And essentially, it's just going to be a back-and-forth game. Whoever can come out on top, especially post-Evo, is in a really good position to win the game.
Efficient evolutions are definitely the name of the game here, because that's really where Swordcraft finds a lot of its board flood, right? Otherwise, you're really looking at playing followers one at a time. Pretty beefy followers, but in terms of opportunities to diversify your targets, or, you know, make sure you have enough threats on board that you can buff up with something like we see on TEJJY's hand, Captain Walfred, or anything like that, it's very important to make sure you have a lot of followers out.
And it looks like TEJJY's really taking that whole Swordcraft game plan to heart. With Captain Walfred, normally we see Fangblade Slayer like we see in Deviate's deck, right? But he's playing the Captain Walfred version because he's like, you know what? I just want to make a huge board, and then I want to make it too big. You know what I mean? So my opponent can't deal with it.
Yeah. These guys are playing fast, man.
Yeah.
They are playing fast.
They know.
So as we get into these later turns here, we do see Aurelia up for DV8. So in case there's any kind of need to fight back against a wide board, there is that option to gain a huge follower.
And yeah, Council of Cardinals coming back in DV8's deck too. We don't see this in all of the Swordcraft decks, especially in Unlimited anymore because of its increased cost. It used to cost 5, now 6, but it does the really cool thing of filling up the board, right? So it has that innate advantage. It does put that Bane follower in play. As you see, TEJJY has to trade into it, but he gets the advantage out of Geno to fill up the board yet again.
Now what's interesting here to me is TEJJY already has no more White Paladins, but DV8 still maintains a few. How valuable do you think, especially if the evolution orbs actually survive to that point, is that tool going to be for him?
It's tough, right? Because it depends. With Captain Walfred, especially as we get to these later turns, maybe they're just not big enough anymore. You know, in the mid-game, it's nice for the push to control the board, but in the late game, does it really compete with cards like Lancer of the Tempest or Arthur or any of these things that then just flood the board with bigger followers than just 1/1s with Ward? It really depends.
There's the Aurelia chosen on 3 opposing followers. And as I assume, the Card Knight is going to run into Lancer to just continue making this tough for TEJJY. And this is really kind of the trade-off, right? If you're left with 2 1/1s against a 5/6 board, that's going to urge you to throw out an evolution orb of some sort, right?
Yeah, this is exactly how you gain advantage. As we saw, DV8's only running 1 Aurelia, but this is such a good spot for it because it will force out the last evolution from TEJJY. Otherwise, he's just going to have to concede board advantage.
Well,
oh, never mind. He had the Momo, so Momo will deal with it as well. Momo, of course, if the opposing follower has 5 or more attack, does gain Bane.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just enough.
Just enough.
Just enough.
Just enough.
But again, that continues to talk about that's a resource that you spend, right? Whether it's the evolution orb or the rush, it's still very important to understand that now that's an option that TEJJY is not going to get back.
That's right. And as we go later and later into these turns, Deviate, now that we see that the boards have been kind of dealt with, how do we know who's winning now? And now it's about those evolution orbs. Of course, defense totals can come into play, but both players being relatively healthy still, it comes down to who can really just have the biggest endgame. And right now, Deviate's looking like it. He already has Albert in hand, has 2 evolution orbs at the ready, and has Lancer of the Tempest to kind of deal with the big board if he needs to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lancer of the Tempest is actually so good. That Israfil effect is super important, especially when the board has nothing that can swing back after it pops its kind of initial hit.
Yeah, and if you think about it, it's kind of like a mini Saha Quill Israfil combo all built into one card for 7. It's really cool.
TEJJY's thinking really hard. The big concerning thing for me is there's no, DV8 has 2 Luxes. TEJJY has nothing, right? Yeah. So he's really living off the top here.
And he's just trying to build up a board, hoping that something sticks, and now his last evolution orb is gone. So he's got to hope this board does a lot of work for him.
Yeah. There still is a lot of space for TEJJY to play, especially if DV8 does not quite respect the wall for it.
And it looks like he's just going for a value play this turn. He's got more cards in hand. Again, he's got more evolution orbs. I really like this. Basically just says, you know what, you only have 2 cards left. You have no evolution orbs left. I'm not really afraid of what you can do. And presents a bigger board.
Yeah. No evolution left for TEJJY means that the ability to kind of flood board through things like Frontline Cavalier, which we see in hand, is just now lost. Oh, okay. That gives you the free evolve.
And this is a combo that I really like. This is something that got introduced with Frontline Cavalier because Floral Fencer couldn't do this, right?
Yes.
Because you need commanders to be able to evolve. Frontline Cavalier with Luminous Mage actually gives you this cool endgame.
Yeah.
And I really like it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, and yeah, of course, we were just talking about this, having this card in hand and everything eliminated with no opportunity for swing back, so that Lancer of the Tempest is just going to stay there and just continue doing that.
And now Deviate's got access to 2 Fangblade Slayers. He's got his Alberts. He's looking to close this game out now.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And not dealing with Lancer of the Tempest after it does its effect is like, it's demoralizing.
There's so much lost tempo. 2 Alberts in hand, and I really feel like this is a game where DV8 can just continuously play out the Fangblade Slayers, and whenever the opportunity arises, just double strike TEJJY for the win.
That's right. With his Albert, of course.
Trades out the Tempest, does 1 more.
Interesting. Could have traded the Lux instead. Maybe he's just like, I'm in a place where it doesn't really matter anymore, which, from what we know, is probably the case.
Yeah. Oh, man. And TEJJY just has no option to kind of find any way to win out here.
Yeah, but I think this is just going to be a poke. He can evolve this, doesn't need to.
Yeah. Just save the evolve for the next turn, just in case.
And I don't know if there's a single card in TEJJY's deck that can bring him back. Mars is definitely not it.
Yeah. Wow, okay. So TEJJY is actually going to take the loss after a very strong early hand. I do think it is a question of, what do you do in that scenario, right? You want to play on your curve, and you want to kind of present the strongest options you have turn after turn after turn, but where is the consideration for running out of gas and the timing of your resources?
Well, here's the thing. In a Swordcraft mirror, it's really hard, right? Because if you want to go towards the card advantage engine, like maybe playing Pure-Hearted Singers or something like that, just to give yourself more options over time, you're not going to have the options on, say, turn 3, turn 4 against the aggro decks that you need. So it makes the Swordcraft mirrors feel like whoever just draws more of their late game faster is going to win if they don't just, crush the board early and just like go all in type of thing. So it's really tough because they don't have those card advantage engines.
The landscape of Unlimited as it stands right now also, I think, is very interesting. How consistently, I mean, in your estimation, can these decks, I mean, traditionally, before Unlimited was ever introduced, we kind of always played Unlimited, but traditionally there were certain decks, I feel like, and Swordcraft specifically, one of them, sometimes you just could not get your options, and there were not a lot of cards that would draw yourself into these options. But I feel like as the game has progressed and more cards have been added in, that is less and less the case, right?
I think most decks in Unlimited at this point are fairly consistent at what they want to do. So mid-range Swordcraft, what does it want to do? It wants to play on curve, and it just wants to beat you with their followers by either Rush, or these Bladed Hedgehogs that build up, or Frontline Cavaliers that fill the board, things like that. We see even Confront Adversity in the deck for TEJJY to counter these aggressive decks, you know what I mean? Like, any way they can just stay on curve and increase their value is how they're going to win. And these aggro decks, I gotta tell you, aggro decks, and this is what I thought we were going to see most of this week, are super consistent in Unlimited now. This aggro Forestcraft business that people are running in top 8 right now, like, they look crazy to me.
I really like the Confront Adversity that TEJJY has included because of that, right? Both against Aggro Forest as well as against Vengeance Blood or Bat Blood, whichever one it is, right? And I suppose for that reason, DV8 is running Elf Girl Liza.
Yep.
But it is just one more option that kind of goes over the head of something like Wooded Brambles and stuff like that, which is very important to have.
I also like to see a lot of the newest cards being centerpieces in these Unlimited decks. Like before, we never saw this card, right? That TEJJY has in play, but it doubles as a 2-drop and a 4-drop. It has really good advantage against other aggro decks because it will heal the defense whenever he attacks something smaller, right? So just a really nice, good role player that got added to the mix. Same thing with Frontline Cavalier. And over on the side of aggro Forestcraft, I mean, Insect Lord just seems like a great on-curve play to just extend your board. You don't have to trade with anything. It'll just, you know, KO something immediately. It's really nice.
This is an interesting situation, I think, for DV8. He has both the Wooded Brambles and the Elf Song available. I mean, he has some very good cards in hand, but it seems I'm not quite sure what the most efficient way for him to spend those resources are.
It's tough. Ancient Elf kind of makes everything a little wonky, too. We were kind of talking about that earlier, if Ancient Elf really has a place in these like all-out board-centric Forestcraft decks. But yeah, I don't know. I still don't know about Ancient Elf. We'll have to see.
Round Table gets plopped down here, and I think this might be the thing that really makes it difficult for DV8. The Liza survives, so there is an opportunity perhaps to bounce it back and try to get that effect again by playing the Ancient Elf. But I don't know. You have to work on this board. Round Table assembling into the Mars White Paladin combo.
This is a back-breaking combo for aggro decks to deal with, absolutely.
Yeah.
Not even Elf Child Maze, you know, with bounce effects and things like that really take care of a board like this. That's one card, by the way, I've really missed in Forestcraft is Elf Child May. Elf Child May, like, it feels like I'm not playing Forestcraft anymore when I don't have this card in my deck. And now it's just back. It's just back, and it's great. You have Airbound Barrage to use with it. Oh, it feels so good.
It's going to be an Insect Lord kind of board clear, I'm going to assume. Unless there's the desire to play the Elf Song. No. It looks like he's going to try to...
Oh, got him.
Yeah, definitely want to take out the Mars because that thing will continuously generate value for you.
But then, Confront Adversity.
And we talked about that. Confront Adversity is so good against Forestcraft because of just how many tokens there are. And didn't get to play the Elf Song either, right? That Elf Song would have made this board so different, but...
Here's another card that we've often forgot about, Dance of Death. We talk about it often, but we haven't seen it in players' decks for a long time. It is back. Why? Because it's good.
It's great. It is fantastic.
Yeah, this is just rough. So the reason why you're seeing DV8 struggle so much is because of these wards. Yes, there were board clears and things like that, but these wards just make it so that even if he had something to push with, there is just no chance. There's just too much going on here.
Opts to play the Elf Song. Now, what's interesting to me here is, I guess there is, to me, I feel like exploring the idea of what if you just play out all your fairies, kind of let that board be the way that it is, right?
And then just hope for a huge Elf Song.
Yeah. And then just plop down the hugest Elf Song off the back of an Ancient Elf, right? And your Wooded Brambles is still there. And you get free trades from that, because, I mean, TEJJY is not going to run in with any of his one defense followers, right? When you have Wooded Brambles on your board. So you kind of swing with your fairies, bounce it with Ancient Elf, play your fairies back, and play the Elf Song.
I think I like that, because realistically, how are you going to win this game if you don't do something outside of the box? You know what I mean? Like, try to build up this big board that can eventually take down what TEJJY's doing. And unfortunately right now, Deviate's just kind of running on fumes. You know, he's got these little fairies. You know, they're not really going to be able to handle the board of TEJJY. But on the same token, TEJJY does have some nice options to get himself to the late game. But if Deviate can eventually clear this board, frontline Cavaliers aren't going to be enough to win the game by themselves.
Mm-hmm. Right, evolves a fairy, and I would assume that Insect Lord is the option here. And he's trying to minimize the possibility of it hitting not the Bladed Hedgehog. Oh,
Ooh.
no! Oh, God.
Sniped once. Not again. Insect Lord.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Is
there's
that
a good
the play
option.
here?
That's, yeah, probably.
Dropping Arthur.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's a frontline Cavalier.
He might want to wait for the Wood of Brambles to be going because Kahulin is like the best thing you can really pull off of Arthur, and it kind of gets shut down by it. So I can definitely see this play.
Yeah. And you still have one Evolution Orb remaining. I feel like this is one of the best ways to make sure Deviate doesn't try to get away with something sneaky, right?
Mm-hmm. And I like the way he's playing it. He's basically like, this is my board. Can you deal with it? I'm still at 20. I honestly don't see anywhere for Deviate to really claw his way back into this. He might have some spectacular Ancient Elf Dance of Death, like just stall options, but how is he going to deal 19 points of damage? Doesn't look like there's that many opportunities to get that done.
Yep. Plays the Ancient Elf here. That Bladed Hedgehog got real buff.
Yeah, yeah. Bladed Hedgehog will do that.
And that was pretty much it. I feel like that was the last of Deviate's kind of choices there, right?
Interesting. So this is a setup for an Arthur play. This will, like I said, hopefully pull out a Kahulin so he can finish off the Ancient Elf.
Oh, there it is.
And a Bladed Hedgehog. That's why I love this combo.
Yeah.
Bladed Hedgehog's like, yeah, you got rid of me, but I'm back.
I mean, he got a Rush follower, a ward, a follower that gets pumped up, protected by the ward. It's just, there's so many
Arthur's
things in defense.
way better because very specifically of the ward. You get a ward now. Before, you never got that option.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. I mean, this really, I think TEJJY's mid-sword is perfect for this scenario, as you were mentioning, right? Just not the craziest stats on his followers, but continuously having the options to have things like a 2-2 ward, right? Or the bars into the White Paladins, or you got the frontline Cavalier just constantly presenting options where DVA has to really, like, when you think of Forestcraft, what cards are able to deal with that? Something like Cassiopeia, Will of Forest, but that's about it.
And TEJJY taking a well-deserved oomph at the end of that game. You saw him on camera there.
Yeah.
He feels it. He's in it.
Yeah, it's going to be the Runecraft deck against the Forestcraft deck that we see from DV8. So the option that TEJJY has to fall back to for his win is Daria, which, interesting that DV8 left that up. I think that's very dangerous in rotation these days.
Very.
But how do you feel about it against this Forestcraft list that DV8 is playing?
Honestly, this is just going to come down to, and I don't like to use this term much, but better draw, essentially. If Daria goes off, Forestcraft doesn't, like, it can ping, right? It can ping with Insect Lord, it can ping with Elfchild May, it can clear something with Airbound Barrage, but if Daria goes off, and this has always been the case with any Forestcraft deck, when Daria fills up an entire board against you, you kind of just throw in the towel, you know what I mean?
That's kind of what we saw in the last game, right? Swordcraft just constantly had boards where the pings didn't really matter.
That's absolutely right. On the other side of things, though, if Deviate gets a very aggressive curve and kind of just goes, you know, bananas before any of this Daria stuff happens, he can just close the game out turn 5, turn 6 before Daria has a chance to get going. So,
yeah, this is an interesting scenario. Now, in your experience, is it better to play the Liza early, or do you try to play the Whisperer and then kind of hope that there's no ping?
You've just got to think about what their best options are. Right now, you don't really care if you get Magic Missiled. And a lot of times, especially with Time-Worn Mage Levi back in the format, you almost want to hold Liza for the evolution turns to make Piercing Runes bad, to make, you know, the Crimson Sorcery that Time-Worn Mage Levi gets you a little bit worse, things like that. If you play it early, what you're really trying to do is protect something from a Magic Missile, which he could decide to do now. Yep. But because of how many bounce spells are in the Forestcraft deck now, you can be a lot more lenient with, you know, how you play out the Lizas. Steering
Knowledge. And this is a great hand for TEJJY in this scenario, right? He's gotten the removal spell to kind of stem the aggression. He's got the Kaleidoscopic Glow to send a card back, prevent more damage swinging in, and he's landed the Daria, too, on top of these boosts.
And TEJJY, I want to say, definitely wanted the 2/2 ward there instead of the Mysterian, the damage spell there. It's just, and funnily enough, that card got restricted to 1 in Unlimited because of how powerful it was. They were just like, nope, too good. Make Daria too consistent. Get out of here.
Yeah, we'll see. It's really, to me, it's a race, right? How quickly can TEJJY present a board that Deviate can't ignore?
Yeah.
And how much health will be remaining on TEJJY at that point?
Now, he does have the option to go for an Ancient Elf type turn to basically use his only option to get that Liza back for future turns. But if he does that, it's going into TEJJY's evolution turn, which makes it a little dicier. This is a tough turn. This is a lot more complicated than it would seem. The other option Deviate has is he could just flood the board out.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can tell he's really thinking about this one. Do I really want to play my Ancient Elf right now? Do I really want to get that back? You know that Liza's not surviving another turn if it doesn't get protected.
Liza is very high value against Rune, but I think Daria at some point shifts from a spell-based deck to followers, right? So
absolutely. This is kind of like the aggro version of Daria 2. We've got the Blade Mages with the Enchanted Swords. Like, it's just trying to get you. You know what I mean?
Goes for the board flood.
Interesting to not play also the Elfchild May. Yes, it does board lock you, but guaranteed a follower is getting removed from this board this turn. Find it very interesting to just save that as an option.
It was a card we haven't seen for a long time either. Time Worn Mage Levi, the old man version of it.
My favorite card in the entire game, by far, that I cannot play with anymore in rotation. Makes me so sad.
And just as predicted, the Liza goes down.
Ooh okay. That was a perfect option to draw from Deviate. I guess we didn't really make mention of like the aggressive draws that include Hyperia, but Hyperia is still a very strong option for aggro Forest Craft. Basically ensures that 7 damage can hit face.
And that's, I mean, a pretty good chunk. It's going to be more than half of TEJJY's health after these fairies potentially swing in.
It is a little dicey because if Levi does remain afterwards, 4 damage is a huge chunk for Daria to be dealing to you, especially with how fast they can go with the Enchanted Swords and the Crimson Sorcery that's already known about from TEJJY, so...
He goes for it.
Will he Evo face is the question.
I kind of think this line of play says if you play the Hyperia, you should probably Evo face, right?
I like it.
That might scare TEJJY. He might think, oh, is there some kind of Roach in there? Was Deviates the list with the Roach? I think both of them had it.
I think you play in Roach. If you're playing Unlimited, you're playing Forest Craft, you got the Roaches back in your deck. There's no reason not to. I mean, especially with Ancient Elf being in the deck list, literally the reason for that is so that you can do more Roach damage.
This is really going to get TEJJY thinking a lot, right? Because he doesn't have perfect information. What could those last 4 cards be? Is there any combination with the 7 damage from Hyperia that would just close this game out?
Yep. So right now, TEJJY's just got to work out the best way to close the game out as soon as possible while dealing with as much as possible. Count the damage. What's possible? 7, I know if I deal with the board. Out of hand, what could he possibly have? Up to X spells with a Roach. He's got to do that math and then decide whether leaving any of these fairies in play is a good idea and just pushing all-out aggression to try to race, or if he needs to clean off the entire board.
I mean, if he does 7 damage, right, the Hyperia is going to do 7 damage.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That leaves you at 4 remaining health. With 6 play points, I feel like you could easily do 4.
This line is about as safe as it gets. And we do not see the win from Deviate. You see him, you see TEJJY cross his fingers like, please don't have it.
Oh my gosh.
Please, Hyperia. And right now we know he doesn't. We know he doesn't. And that's really scary for Deviate because we know Daria, especially with what we see in play. There's 10 damage sitting in play right now. He already knows about the burn spell in hand.
What is the way to even clear the board here for Deviate? You definitely want the Hyperia to swing face if you can make it happen. Any combination of Elfchild May into your Liza, into your Insect Lord. The Liza can evolve. If the Elfchild May hits the Chimera, the Elfchild Liza can evolve and trade it out, then the Insect Lord. Oh my god.
Yeah, I think exactly what you were talking about. The line that Deviate has is he knows he can't win the game this turn, so he has to do the same decision-making that TEJJY did on his previous turn. How do I basically deal with as much of the board as possible while still getting the game over as quickly as I can from my side. And he took the gamble. Looks like he wasn't too sure of what happened after that Elf Child May hit.
Yeah. Okay, it's going to be the Liza, so he's probably going to evolve this. And then trade it into the Chimera, and then make sure the Insect Lord has a guaranteed shot.
And now that Hyperia is protected from anything but an Evolution Orb.
Which is probably what TEJJY is going to do. I mean, he has to, almost.
And it's not like TEJJY's out of this by any means. He's still right there. 6 damage is a big number when you only have 2 cards left in your hand as a Forestcraft player.
Yeah, not even Fairy Driver can make that happen.
Right, not by itself. Neither can H.
Your number 1 priority is removing the Hyperia at this point.
You gotta do it.
Okay, the only target that could be hit by that uses the Enchanted Blade before he tosses the hand. Oh, wow. Isn't that kind of risky? Oh my gosh.
Like this. I like this. He's basically just trying to get as much value as he possibly can out of this one turn.
I think you just play the Daria at 0 cost. There's so much upside to having 2 play points after your Daria shuffles your hand.
And I think he's just making the consideration, okay, do I want to play any of these other effects?
Wow. Okay. So this kind of locked out any option for Blade Mages to kind of...
Wow.
Does pull 1.
But he didn't save a play point so that he could have executed all these things.
That would have been a huge turn.
Yeah,
if he had saved that play point. Spends Evolve still, and TEJJY still is worried about what might come as a result of this. No Evolution Orb remaining.
The crazy thing is that Kaleidoscopic Glow could have actually added damage to DV8's play, because if he were to draw something like a Rhinoceroach,
he could have played the Goblin.
Yeah.
Yep.
Goblin, Elf Child May, combo with, Ancient Elf, all of these things considered.
Oh, man. So the Daria's going to... oh, no! And TEJJY is ecstatic. Is this over? I think the Angelic Snipe on the ward and double Blade Mage,
This is it. Yep, this is it. He's got Angelic Snipe and Magic Missile and Blade Mage.
Yep. He can play both the Blade Mages here.
What a game.
Oh, my gosh.
And TEJJY, with a sigh of relief, takes that one.
That was so close.
That was so close.
That was way too close.
And that didn't even come down to lucky draws. That just came down to who could push the hardest while defending themselves the best in the mid-game. Daria just has bigger followers.
What do you think were the choices that DV8 made that kind of put him in the scenario that ended up losing? Was it even the early turns about choosing the not Liza versus,
Sure. I mean, a lot of it can be like that, right? So if you put your opponent into the position of you have to deal with my Ancient